On this episode of Elite Access, we had a chance to sit down and talk with 12-time Olympic medalist swimmer Natalie Coughlin. That's right, 12 Olympic medals, 3 gold, 4 silver, 5 bronze. She is a history-making woman. She was the first one ever to swim the 100-meter backstroke in under a minute. Then she went on to win consecutive back-to-back Olympic gold medals in the 100-meter backstroke. And she was the first U.S. female Olympian to bring home 6 medals from a single Olympic Games. This history-making record breaker is still training strong for Rio 2016. Outside of the pool, she's appeared on some TV shows. She was a judge on Iron Chef. She appeared on Food Network's Chopped Sports Stars. She even competed in Dancing with the Stars. And if that's not enough, she also wrote a book called Golden Girl. Natalie sat down with us all the way over in Doha, Qatar, where she's competing at the Short Course World Championships. She talked to us about some big training changes, swimming with the men, and how she handled defeat. So Natalie Coughlin, welcome to Elite Access. We're so excited and honored to have you here with us.
Thank you so much, Laura.
And all the way from Doha, Qatar, taking time out of your training and about to compete at Short Course World Championships. So we're double excited to have you on here. Thanks for making time for us.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, I have 5 days of competition coming up, starting tomorrow for me. So today was really all about just relaxing and painting my nails and just getting my rest in, and it's been a really nice, relaxing day.
Okay, so you are coming off an American record swim in the 100 IM in Italy just last month. Congratulations. And I love something that you mentioned afterward about your success there. You said that you weren't surprised by it at all, that it's indicative of what you've been building on, that you've been really consistent, really, really strong in training. You've just been waiting for that consistency and hard work to pay off. So what gave you the confidence that that hard work was going to show up and pay off?
Well, I think you have been competing for so long, and I've been competing for a really long time. And when you have that experience, you understand that you set really high goals for yourself. But you also know that sometimes those goals you don't achieve them on the timeline that you set out. So, if you think you could go a certain time at the end of the summer, it might be 2 summers from now that you achieve that goal. And that's just part of the process. It's part of the struggle of being an athlete. And I understand that process, and I respect that process, as frustrating as it could be at times. And I just know that, my training's been really, really good and really consistent. And it's just about me having that confidence and putting it together in a racing situation. I'm really hoping that Italy was just the start of the next big step in my career.
So your experience kind of really tells you that it's coming, and you know that when you put in the time, it will show up eventually, right? Maybe not on your timeline, but hopefully as your plan progresses, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so you had a huge change in your swimming program in so many ways after London. And I want to talk about several aspects of that, but the first one being the coaches. You had the same coach, Terry McKeever, for over 12 years, and now you're training with Dave Durden for the past 2 years and heading into Rio for 2016. What prompted that transition?
Well, I had been with Terry for 12 years, and I realized the last few years that I was there that I wasn't really getting my needs met. As, a 30 some odd, or actually late 20s at the time, woman, my needs were very different than the needs of the college age girls. Mm-hmm. And I realized that it's not really fair to ask for my own workout or anything like that. And I didn't want to take anything away from the girls, but I knew that the way that the guys train with Dave Durden, I knew that was more in line of what I needed, and in my stage that I'm at in my career. So the transition wasn't as awkward as I thought it was going to be. I spoke with Terry, and she gave her blessing for me, to seek out swimming with Dave. And I talked to Dave, and he was on board. And I'm really, really fortunate in how easy the transition was, and how lucky I am that I had another great coach on the same pool deck, where I didn't have to move my husband and sell my house and move away from the town that I love. I still get to be at Berkeley. I just, swim on the other side of the pool now.
So it's not too far of a move.
Yeah, it's not too far moved. I still have the same locker that I've had for 14 years.
Oh, nice. Score. So was that change hard for you? Because he made a lot of changes to your training, and did you have a hard time trusting him in that process?
The trust thing wasn't difficult for me at all. Dave put so much thought into each and every one of his swimmers. Like, that's one of the things that I think makes him such a great coach, is he's constantly thinking about every single one of his swimmers, and he's very, very cerebral. And he never kind of phones it in. He always is thinking, and there's a purpose for everything that we do. So knowing that, I was all in for his program. I knew that I needed a change, and I craved a change. So when I started his program, it was so different, and that was motivating, and that was exciting, and that got me on board for everything.
And so the other big change was that when you went with Dave, you're now swimming with the guys instead of the girls in college. You're now swimming with professional men. So what was that like? That transition. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the transition into swimming with all men versus all women was much easier than many people would probably expect. I have a very crude sense of humor sometimes, and very juvenile sense of humor sometimes. So I fit in with the college age boys and the 20 some odd year boys very well. So that makes it so that I forget that I'm the only girl there. And I think a lot of times the guys forget I'm the only girl there. The only time that I really noticed it is when I'm in the locker room after practice, completely by myself in a lonely locker room. And I kind of crave that camaraderie that you have after practice, where you're in the showers together and you're talking it up. Like, that's one of the things I miss most, training with women, is that locker room time. But other than that, the transition has been wonderful, and they've really embraced me. And the fact that I could make the silly jokes with them, and when they talk trash to me, I could talk back like really, really quickly. So I think I've earned their respect.
Oh, I love it. I want to come sit on the pool deck and listen to this trash talk. Does it change the way you approach your sets and workouts or anything? I mean, like, do you kind of go in like, Nathan's really good at this one, I'm really going to try to chase him today. Maybe I could actually get him on this. Like, does it change the way you go in mentally sometimes? I mean, we talked about how you don't really even see yourself as a girl, but like, if you're trying to catch them, does that kind of, I don't know, change the way you focus a little bit, or are you just totally zoned in on your own thing in practice?
I'm pretty zoned in on my own thing in practice, but I'm also competitive. I'm so competitive with everything. And I think one of the biggest differences I noticed with an all-female group versus an all-male group, the women, they are so competitive in everything, whether it's warm-up or drills or kicking or pulling, all the little things. They're constantly racing. And that was great for me when I was, 18 and 20 years old. But now that I'm in my 30s, that's exhausting, and that's not exactly the right focus level. And the guys, they will take warm-up. Like, how slow they take warm-up is kind of amazing. But it also reminds me to, just enjoy it. Just, feel the water and warm up your body. And then as we get into drills, it's still about technique and not pushing yourself when the intent is not to push yourself. And so with the men's team, it's okay if you're not, racing the person next to you when you're not supposed to be. And I feel like when I was with the women, it was constantly like racing, which was great. like I said, when I was younger, but now it like was exhausting and it was like kind of frustrating at times.
Oh, that's so funny. I never would have thought about that. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, women, we're so competitive, and
Yeah.
even when you try and turn it off, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
It's ingrained, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Well, so okay, so you also train the actual program. Like you said, I think you're lifting an extra day, you're not doing as much Pilates, you're swimming maybe more but shorter sessions. Like tell me a little bit more about that, and like was that a hard adjustment also, like physically, mentally, any of that?
The hardest adjustment, adding an extra lift. So I lift 4 times a week, and I lift very, very heavy. So the biggest adjustment for me was adjusting my diet. I eat very, very healthy, but I was realizing that I was putting so much muscle on that I wasn't compensating with getting maybe more protein to aid in like the repair of the extra muscle. Like my body definitely looks a little different than it did a few years ago. Like my arms are a little bigger than they were. So I needed to learn how to compensate with eating more proteins throughout the day. So more eggs, more chicken, more beef, whatever. And then I still do Pilates on my own, but I don't see an instructor just because it doesn't fit within my schedule anymore. I used to commute to see my private instructor, and I can't do that anymore. And then swimming more, but shorter sessions has been great because we'll have a recovery day. Before our recovery day was just out of the water, and that was great because you could do your errands, relax, do whatever. But I found I wasn't really recovering. So now my recovery day is in the water, so it might be some slower swimming, but I'm still in touch with the water. So yeah, there are so many things that changed, but for where I am in my career and what my goals are, I think all the changes were kind of perfect. But at the same time, there was a learning curve to it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, I can imagine. So, I mean, 2012, obviously you didn't have at trials, you didn't have the meet I think you were hoping for. I mean, you won 100 back, in 2004 and in 2008, and then just missed making the team in 2012. But then, you went on to make the team and you won a bronze medal in London, just in a different event. But and you were so graceful on camera at the trials, but how did you internalize all that? Like, how did it affect you? Was it really not a big deal, which I'm kind of doubting, but I mean, how did you handle that and then come back so strong?
It was a big deal, but what was so frustrating and at the same time eye-opening was how people treated me. I think like one of the most interesting things were people they were acting like I was dying of cancer or as if like the world was ending for me, and it was one of those things I was like, you guys, it's fine. And they kind of like people were surprised that I was, so gracious to like Missy Franklin and Rachel Bootsma, the two girls that got first and second in the 100 back, and I was kind of surprised because I was like, I remember what it was like to make my first Olympic team, and that was the best moment, of their lives thus far, and I wanted to congratulate them on that. And like I understood that my life will still go on, and things will great things will happen for me, and so I wanted to congratulate them in that moment. And the fact that so many people expected some sort of total mental breakdown. I was wondering if that was more a reflection on how they would react in that situation, or if they really thought I was crazy. But
I don't think that's the case. I
wasn't really sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure what that meant, but it was eye opening. It really, really was eye opening.
That's funny. How did you? I mean, because obviously it was still you wanted to make that event, I'm sure. So how did you kind of refocus and gather yourself to keep going to try to make the team and then go on to do well at the games?
Yeah, I focused on it just knowing that my freestyle is really good, and that just because I didn't make the 100 back doesn't mean I can't make the Olympic team. I knew that with the relay and, everything else, I knew I was a racer, and I knew that just my experience alone in those pressure situations will help me get to the next, make the next step and make the team. So I just try to get my head in the game. And I just started focusing on the 100 free. I didn't really have time to dwell on that 100 back. I knew that my Olympic trials weren't over, and my experience really kicked in. The 20 some odd years of competition experience kicked in, knowing that I still have a task to do and I still have a shot. Mm-hmm. So, don't dwell and focus on what's coming up.
You have been swimming a long time and accomplished just about everything a swimmer can accomplish. I mean, 11 NCAA titles, 20 World Championship medals. We said 12 Olympic medals. I mean, you've been Sportswoman of the Year. You're in Cal's Athletic Hall of Fame. Done it all. Records in nearly every event. What keeps you going after so much success, and how do you stay motivated or keeping it fresh?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not very hard for me to stay motivated just because, I do have that new environment. So that is just so fun in and of itself. But also, I love working out. Like, whether I'm a professional athlete or, when I retire, I'll still continue to work out a ton and challenge myself physically. And as long as I could do this and still call it my job, I find myself, I would consider myself very fortunate. But, I wanted to keep going after London 2012 just because I knew there were things in my training I wasn't doing that I could have done differently and been successful. I knew that I could still be better. I knew that there was untapped potential in my sprint freestyle, and I wanted to see that through, and so I committed myself to another 4 years, which when I was 16 or 20 or 24, there's no way I thought I would be swimming at this age still, but I love it. Like, I love it so much more than I ever have, and I know that I don't have that much longer to compete, and so I'm just kind of relishing the moment.
I'm glad you have that perspective now, so you can enjoy it in the moment while you're doing it, not look back going, wish I would have enjoyed that a little more, because I feel like a lot of people do that. They retire and they're like, so serious, I wish I could have enjoyed the process more, but you are doing that, and that's wonderful. It's perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, so I love the fact that you were the very first woman ever to break the minute in the 100 back. I just think that's so cool. So was that always like a goal of yours, or is it just something that happened and you were like, wow, you can break a minute in that? Because like right after you did it, all these girls started doing it. And it was kind of like the first time a guy ran the mile in under 4 minutes. Like, everybody said it wasn't humanly possible, but then he finally did it. And then everybody started doing it in that next year. So what was the situation with your 100 back?
Yeah, so for me, I ended up breaking the minute for the first time in 2002, and it had been a goal of mine since, I think, about 1999 or so. Like, I was 1 minute, high, or 1:01, and I knew that I could do it. And so in 2001, I was 1:00:16, 1:00:18, like so close. So when I eventually broke it, it was more like kind of like a monkey off my back type situation. And yeah, like it was great, and it was such a relief. And then 5 years later, was all of a sudden all these girls were breaking a minute, like left and right. And I was like, dang, but I got to enjoy that spotlight of being the only one to be able to do that for a few years before everyone joined the club.
You'll always be the first one, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly. I was the first. And the first to go under 59. So I'm still
cool.
proud of that.
Oh, yeah, I should have remembered that.
Yeah.
My husband pointed that out last night. So he's a big fan because he was a swimmer and he coached for a while. So he was giving me all my Natalie stats I needed yesterday.
Oh, nice. Nice. Well, going under 59 isn't, it doesn't have the same ring as going under a minute. So.
But it's way more cool, right?
Yeah.
Michael, is there anything we haven't talked about that you think would be encouraging or motivational for people, trying to get to their own goals that we haven't talked about?
I think as long as that part about Olympic trials, came through, I think that's so important because, like I said, it was, even though I was upset in my performances, or particularly my 100 back performance at the trials, that I at least acknowledged that this was the greatest moment of these two girls' lives thus far, and that I should congratulate them. I was upset, but I'm not going to throw a hissy fit and or anything like that because it's just swimming. It's not that big of a deal. So as long as that came through, I'm good.
No, I think that's great. And I think that's so important to remember that, swimming is something you do. It's not necessarily who you are, right? And so I think you are a wonderful example of sportsmanship and sportsman-like behavior. And you're just so gracious and humble. Every time I hear you talk, I remember, I think, after your NCAA career, you won like 11 out of your 12 possible, NCAA titles, and people kept focusing on this silver medal that you got, and you were like, well, you finally noticed. It was kind of like they were, it was kind of like they just got used to you winning, and then it was like you got second, and so then they were finally paying attention, and so I just love the way you handle things. You seem to have such a good perspective on swimming versus life, and I think that's gonna, obviously pay off dividends in your life outside of the pool as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I think what set up that sportsmanship attitude or that perspective attitude in me was when, I was 15 and 16 years old. I had so much success, and I was, on this path to make the 2000 Olympic team and all those other things. And then I had a major setback with an injury, and that kind of opened up my eyes to realize that, this all could be taken away at any moment. Mm-hmm. And to really be in the moment and not take it for granted and enjoy it. And I think that kind of set me up for the rest of my career. So, that setback of not making the 2000 Olympic team and having an injury was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, it wasn't that great, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It's amazing how that journey kind of shapes you. I love that. Well,
exactly.
Natalie, thank you so much for taking time out and doing this interview. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Of course. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the terrible internet connection. I thought it would be better.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No worries.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Elite Access, and don't forget, you can gain an even greater advantage by answering the questions that go along with this episode and checking out all the extra resources.